Hey guys, it's Beej from Complete Developer Podcast here again doing my homework. Yay, my least favorite thing to do on a Sunday, to be honest with you guys. This was torture. There's like no other word for it. This homework was just an absolute pain. And most of the time it's kind of fun. There were just certain things in here that were like, do this, and no explanation, and it was just a pain. So we're gonna go through this, and I'm gonna set my first one as the start project. So for this first one, I didn't put a whole lot here in the initial comments because it was really long. Uh, Basically designing a class named account. Um, yeah, and then a lot of details about what needs to go into that class. So we've got private fields here, public fields here. So if you notice this weird thing, like the private and the public are all the way over here, I didn't do that. Visual Studio did that, and I figure it's their special formatting. I'm not going to mess with it. So don't count off for it because that wasn't me. That was Visual Studio, and I just left it as is. So, gonna be saying that a lot throughout this because there's a lot of like quirky things here. So like I said, some private data fields. Um, we have our constructors, we have our getters, we have our setters, we have a couple other getters. Um, Kind of have to do a little. That's not just getting uh, from the private data. It's calculations and then some mutators. So here we go. Um, Empty constructor and then one with an ID and a balance. Uh, Getting those, getting the date. This was a pain in the rear end, to tell you the truth. Because figuring out a date format in C++ is, well, extremely annoying. I like C Sharp. C Sharp has a date time object. I can just use that. C++ needs a date time object. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, this took me till about 1 a.m. last night. I really wanted to get this homework done last night so I could spend the afternoon with my girlfriend. But instead, I spent the afternoon very frustrated with doing the rest of this homework because of this bit right here. So, yeah, there's that. You can tell I'm really happy about it, can't you? Actually, I'm quite stressed out right now. The world is just going to the pot, and so life is life is interesting. Uh, yeah, there's that old Chinese curse. May your life be interesting. I don't know if it's Chinese, but it's just an like old curse. And yeah. Hmm. All right. Here we go. We got the get monthly interest rate. This takes the annual rate, divides it by 12. What do you do? Then get monthly interest. This takes your balance, divides it or multiplies it by the monthly interest rate divided by 100 because the rate is a percentage. You have to get it down to uh, the actual number there. And that doesn't really take into account the compound interest and stuff like that, but whatever. And then here's your setters, mutators where you withdraw, deposit, all that jazz. And then here we go doing that test program in main. So we run it. Yes. And boom. This was the information I was required to put in. Um, so there it is. Awesome. We're done. Moving on to the next one. Set this as a start project. All right, here we go. Quadratic. This one we were told to design a class for a quadratic equation, taking in private data fields A, B, C. If you're familiar with the quadratic equation, you'll know what those are. hey, that's what I was told to name them. I've gotten docked for naming things, naming iterators I. So, yeah, that's what I was told to name them. So don't count me off for naming them that. All right, so public, we have our constructor, some getters. This calculates the discriminant, which is basically the part under the square root, and that determines how many roots they're going to be. If it is negative, there are no roots because it's imaginary. Think about it. If it is 0, there is 1 root. And if it is positive, non-zero, then there are 2 roots. So then we come down here. We have our constructor, pretty basic. Our getters, pretty basic. They just return what they say they return. Discriminant, like I said, it's the part under the square root. Under the square root. And then here we get root 1. This calculates the positive or the first root of 2 or the sole root if there's only 1. So if you remember, it's negative b plus or minus a square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Well, you get 2 answers out of that. If the discriminant is positive, you get a positive and a negative. So this calculates the positive one, or if it's the only root, it just calculates that one. And then get root 2 calculates the second one. So then we were told to write a test program, main, that takes in user input and then checks the discriminant. If it is greater than 0, gives you the 2 roots. If it is 0, gives you the 1 root. If it is below 0, tells you that it has no roots. So we're going to go through this. I've got 3 of them to go through, 1 for each. So let's do it. First off, we will do the 2 roots. 2 roots. It's almost like 2 Utes. Any fans of My Cousin Vinny? Oldie but a goodie. So this should work. I wrote it down. So 2, 2, 2 gives us no roots. All right. We're going to start with no roots. I wrote them down backwards. That makes sense. But yeah. So let's do this again. 2, 4, 2 should give us 1 root. Yep, the sole root is negative 1. And then 2, 6, 3 will give us 2 roots. There we go. Yeah, I just wrote them down backwards order. So that happens. All right. There is that one. An example of all 3. You can take those and put them into the quadratic formula yourself and figure them out if you want. I'm not going to do that for you, so yeah. All right. Next, we have intersection. All right. So this basically takes 2 points on 2 different lines. So 4 points technically, but 2 points to make a line. And then looks where those lines intersect. So let's walk through this. Here we have a class for a line. Actually, I was not told to make a class in this one, but since we were studying classes, I went ahead and, figured I'd do it. No. So we have our private data here, variables, constructor. Then we get the slope and we get the intercept, and these are used to find where they intersect. So here's our constructor. Here is our get slope, where we calculate the slope based on that line. Here's our get intercept. It actually uses get slope. Woot woot. So, we know we're putting that to use somewhere at least. And then we have our main program here where we have our variables. We're, again, literally told to call them x1, x2, x3, x4, y1, y2, y3, y4, which actually makes sense to have them named that way in this one. But yeah. So we start off with our first line, pull in those coordinates, and then pass them in and create line 1. Second line, create line 2. Then first off, we need to check if they actually intersect or if they are parallel. So if the slopes, you subtract one from the other. If it equals 0, then they are parallel. Otherwise, they will intersect at some point. And then we come here and go, hey, to get the x-intersect, run this. I had to look this up because it wasn't in the assignment. I guess I was supposed to already know this stuff. Whatever. It's been a while since I've done geometry. And then y-intersect here, and then displaying it. So let's throw this out here. We use the information that we were given. So supposed to use 2, 2, 0, 0, 0, 2, 2, 0. And that gives us an intersect at 1, 1. Awesomeness. Moving right along to our final one. Yay. This one was a bit of a pain. Oops. I'm not supposed to be touching my nose. I better go wash my hands after this is over with. Yeah, y'all, don't touch your face. Wash your hands. 20 seconds. Sing a song. I'm not going to sing you a song. All right. So with this one, we are designing a class to contain the location of the maximum value in a 2D array. So this has been the bane of my existence for the last hour and a half or so. Yeah, it's been a pain, a real absolute torture pain doing this. Mainly because of this bit right here. So I made our rows and columns to be global variables. Literally was told the signature had to be this for the method. So I was only allowed to pass in the 2D array, not the size of it. So I tried everything I could find using size of to get the rows and columns of a 2D array. None of it worked. Everything I passed into size up returned 4. I just threw in random stuff. It returned 4. Yeah. So I best not be counted off for this. Made these global. All right, here is class location. Basically, I was told to make it public. Actually makes life a little bit easier doing that. Honestly, I don't need... No, I do need that in one place. Never mind. So, variables. Here's our constructors. Use this to get the maximum value, and this sets the row, the column, and max. Constructors. I got 2. Wasn't told how to make these, so I just made them up myself. 1 sets the row, column to 0, and max value to 0. The other one you can pass in the max value and sets the row and column to 0. Man, my nose itches. I already touched it, so I need to wash my hands again. But anyway. Getters, get max value. Setters, set row, set column, set max. And then we have our method locate largest that returns the location class that we just created. So what I did here, it's passing in that 2D array. I passed in the max value or not the max value. I passed in the first value so that when I create it, location 0, 0 has the value for 0, 0. Then we come down here and we just iterate through. This is where I had the problem right here, was knowing, all right, how many rows, how many columns? When all I have is this, everything I found online said use size of array divided by size of the first element to get the rows, and then there's a little bit of difference on how to get the columns. None of that worked because size of array returned 4, size of first element returned 4, size of int returned 4. Yeah. Not cool. So I made those global, and now I have the information I need. We go back down here. So if the element in array I, j, which by the way, going back to naming, I was told to name it that. That was in the instructions. I would have named this something a little bit better personally. If that's larger than the value in the max location, then we're going to set the row, set the column, set the row, set the max value. Otherwise, keeps looping through. Works pretty well, actually. So here we have our main function. We declare our variable. We get our rows and columns. Remember, these are global now. Then we instantiate our 2D array here, and had to look that up again. I forgot how to do that. Don't really use 2D arrays like ever. Then come down here. We get that caller method and display our output. So let's run this. We're going to do 2 rows, 3 columns, 12, 54, and 2.5. In our first row, second row, we'll go 85.2, 3, 65. So, as you can see, the largest value is 85.2, and the location is 1, 0, or row 2, column 1. However you want to say that. But in the array, it is at 1, 0. All right, there you go, guys. I am going to get off here and try to go spend some time with my girlfriend if she is not too mad at me for spending all afternoon doing homework. So talk to y'all later.